Hey everyone, Tim Streifler here, and I have a super awesome tutorial for you, how to create a pop-up in Divi. And I'm actually gonna show you two different methods of achieving that. The first method is how to create a pop-up in Divi without using a plugin. And so no plugins required. We're gonna do it with a little bit of code, just a little bit, nothing to be scared of. And it's really awesome. It's done right on the page, and it's super, super easy. And then the second method is I'm gonna show you how to build a pop-up in Divi using a plugin, specifically Divi Overlays. If you're not familiar, Divi Overlays is the original pop-up builder for Divi, and it's actually it was the first ever page builder powered pop-up builder. It was the first ever to allow you to use the page builder to design and build the pop-up. And so it was revolutionary when it first came out, and it's continued to be the most powerful and most popular way to build pop-ups using Divi. So we're going to show you how to do that as well and all the features that that entails. But let's go ahead and dive in and show you how to do it in a tutorial without a plugin. And so the tutorial that we are following can be found on divilife.com. And so if you're already on this blog post now, you're good to go. But if you're watching this video on YouTube, there's a link to this post in the description of the video, and it should be at the top. And you're going to need this link, this page, because all the code that you need to achieve the pop-up is found on this page. So let's go ahead. I'm going to give you a quick summary of how this works, and then we'll actually dive into a demo site and set it up for you. So as I mentioned, if you don't want to use don't want to use code, don't want to mess with it, don't want to take the time, you'd rather have all of the features and benefits of using a plugin to build the pop-ups, then right here at the top, you can go and check out Divi Overlays. And if you want to fast forward this video to where I show you how to build the pop-up in Divi Overlays, there are timestamps below in the description. And so if you're watching this on the blog post, click the video to take you over to YouTube in order to get those timestamps. So, but let's go ahead and look at the method without a plugin using code. And so there's essentially 3 steps to achieving this, to building the pop-up. The first is to actually create what you want the pop-up to be, the Lightbox content. So that's going to be what you want to actually pop up on the screen. And so you might already have something built out on the screen, or maybe something, an existing section of the page that you're like, oh, this would make a perfect pop-up. If so, great. If not, then you can design something that you want to be the pop-up, and you can do it right there in the builder. And once you have that, all you have to do is add this Lightbox content CSS class, and you add it to the CSS class field in the advanced tab of the section, row, or module. And every single Divi section, row, module has an advanced tab with a place to put a CSS class. And so again, you can use any section, row, or module as a pop-up with this method. So we're going to be doing an entire section, but if you wanted just a form, just a module, like a contact form, then you can do that. So it doesn't really matter whether you do a section or a module, just matters that you get the CSS class in the right place. So that's step 1. Step 2 is to set up the Lightbox trigger. The trigger is what the user is clicking in order for the pop-up to open. And so the Lightbox trigger we're going to use in our demo is going to be a button, and so a Divi button module. And so the button module, same thing. You go to the advanced tab and you add the CSS class field, but this time it's going to be a little bit different. Instead of Lightbox content -1, it's going to be Lightbox trigger -1. And we need to make sure that those numbers match up in order for everything to sync up so that the code knows what trigger is supposed to open what pop-up. And then the third step is to add the code. And there's 2 parts to the code, the CSS and the JavaScript. We'll talk more about that when we dive into it, but those are the 3 steps. The Lightbox content, what you want the pop-up to be, add the CSS class. The Lightbox trigger, which is what you want to open the pop-up when it's clicked by the user. And then the code. And so let's go ahead and dive into the tutorial here. So I have a demo site already set up. And so I'm actually using a child theme here from Divi Life, Divi Web Design Agency. It's a really popular child theme with our members over at Divi Life. And so we'll be using this. So I'm going to go ahead and activate the Divi Builder. Actually, really quick, let me scratch that and go back here to the front end. I wanted to show you. So what we're going to be using on the contact page, this child theme has a really nice contact page with 3 columns with the contact information, phone number, email address, location, and then a contact form below it. And I thought this would make a really good like contact form pop-up. And so what I'm going to do is I already added it to this page at the bottom. And so normally it's not on the home page like this, but I went ahead and added it to the page. And so let's go ahead and activate the Divi Builder. So I'm going to scroll down to where this, whoops, it's looking, by the way, you're seeing it different than we just saw it on the home page because the CSS, custom CSS of the child theme isn't being rendered in the Visual Builder. Okay, so here's my section. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And then we'll go to the Advanced tab here and then open up the CSS ID and classes. And really quick, you'll notice I'm using Divi 4.0. Now, depending on when you're watching this video, Divi 5 might be fully released. If that's the case, you can still follow along with this tutorial. Everything is still going to work the same way. It's just the UI is a little bit different with Divi 5. At the point of this recording, Divi 5 has not been fully released. It's still in alpha. And so I'm going to stick with Divi 4 for this tutorial, but just know that Divi 5, it's all going to work the same way. Everything's going to be essentially in the same place as far as like the Advanced tab. It's just going to look a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the tutorial here, and I'm going to go back to step 1, and I'm going to copy the Lightbox content 1 class. And it's much easier just to copy it. That way you don't have any typos. So Lightbox content 1, I'm going to go ahead and close this section. So boom, step 1 is done. Now we need to figure out where we want the pop-up to appear. So I really like having this button here, get started, open up that contact form pop-up instead of going to a separate page. And that's the beauty of pop-ups. You get to keep users on the same page rather than having them wait for another page to load, and you get their information faster. So I want this button here. So I'm going to make sure that there's no link here. So in a button module, if you have a link, well then you'll see the pop-up start to appear and then the page will change. So you need to not have a link here. Divi wants something in this field. So I like to do an anchor tag and then open, right? Simulating like an anchor link. And so that's usually the best thing to do for a pop-up like this. So that way it's not going to go and change to a different page. And we'll go to the Advanced tab, open up CSS ID and classes. And then, oops, let's go back to the tutorial here over to step 2. And now let's get the Lightbox trigger class. And we'll add that to the page here. So Lightbox trigger 1, we need to make sure that those match up. Those numbers match. And the words match too, Lightbox. Okay, so we've saved that. So we've added the button. We've added the CSS class to the button to trigger the pop-up. It's not going to do anything yet. If I save the page and look at the front end without the Visual Builder, it's still not going to work because we haven't added the code. So we need that third step. Now, before we add the code, I want to mention there's 2 different ways that you can add the code. And depending on what you plan on doing, one might be better than the other. And so if you plan on adding the pop-up to multiple pages, so maybe you want, for example, this contact pop-up being accessible from the home page, from the services page, wherever, you're going to trigger that same pop-up. Or maybe you're going to have different pop-ups on different pages. Either way, if you're going to have pop-ups appearing on multiple pages, whether it's the same pop-up or different pop-ups, then you're going to want to go with this method here, the second method, which is adding the code to the Divi Theme Options Integration tab. And the reason is that will automatically add the code to every page of the site. That way you don't have to add the code to every single page where you're having a pop-up. And so it just saves you some time. So to do that, you go to Divi Theme Options, then go to the Integration tab, and I already have some code here from the child theme. And then you would just start a new line, paste it in. You would paste the CSS code, the style code, as well as the jQuery below. And then you just need to make sure that you go down and you hit save, and you wait for that green check. Boom. For the sake of this tutorial though, I'm gonna go ahead and add it directly to the page. Now, if you're only gonna have like one pop-up, for example, on one page, then you can go ahead and add the code. Or maybe you are gonna have a couple different pop-ups, but you're okay with adding the code to each page. And the benefit of that is that now that extra code isn't gonna be run on every single page of your site. It's really lightweight code. There's not a lot to it. Most of the functionality is actually using Divi's built-in Lightbox functionality that's already built in Divi. So if you do end up adding it to Divi Theme Options and it gets added to every page, it's not going to slow down your site. It's very minimal code. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how to add it directly to the page here. So I'm going to scroll down, and actually I'm going to go into Wireframe view. Now, the reason why I do this is when I'm adding like code to a page, it's easier to kind of see everything and where it's placed on the page rather than Visual Builder mode. Visual Builder mode is great for designing and being able to see things as they are going to appear on the front end of the site. But for like placing stuff, I find that Wireframe mode is much easier. Now, this is the section here. Before we add the code, I want to mention another thing. As soon as we add the code, this section is going to disappear from the front end as well as Visual Builder mode, because the code is going to hide it until it's triggered, right? That's what it's supposed to do. However, I recommend, it'll still be here in Wireframe mode, but I recommend just changing the admin label so you know what it is on the page. That way you can easily spot it when you're in Wireframe mode. Because if you're looking through and you're like, did I add it to the bottom? I don't remember. And you have to go and open up a ton of stuff. So just change that admin label, makes it easier. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to add a new section. You don't necessarily need to, but I'm going to go ahead and add a code module. So again, before I add the code, I added a new section and then put in a code module. You could put a code module anywhere else on the page if you wanted. I'm just going to keep it separate just for organizational purposes. So we'll open up that code module, and now we have two chunks of code to copy. We have the style code, and from the blog post here, you'll notice, I'm going to zoom in here, you have that copy to clipboard button in the upper right hand corner of the code box. Make sure you click that, because if you try to select all of this, it's going to also give copy these line numbers, and you don't need those. And so this will copy it correctly. So we'll go ahead and paste that here. And you want to make sure that it has the style, blanking, style tags. There we go, style tags. And then we'll go back to the tutorial. We'll scroll down to the second code box, which is the script, the jQuery script. We'll go ahead and copy that as well via the same method. And we'll come back to the blog post here and we'll paste that there. And again, we want to make sure that we have the opening and closing script tags as well. It gets copied with it, but just kind of a good rule of thumb is that when you're adding code to the page, you need, if it's style code, you need style tags. If it's JavaScript, you need script tags. So we'll go ahead and save that. And now you'll notice when I go back to Visual Builder mode and I scroll all the way down, that contact pop-up is no longer there. And that's good. We don't need it. Or we do need it. We need it to pop up when it's clicked, when the trigger is clicked, but we don't want it visible unless it's being triggered. So I'm gonna go ahead and click save. Normally, okay, it wasn't spinning. Normally you get the little spinning. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and exit the Visual Builder. Now, if I did this correctly, which I'm pretty sure I did, then as soon as we click that Get Started button, we will see the pop-up, that contact pop-up. Boom, there it is. and my browser is a little bit small, so the pop-up is scrolling. So this is kind of a bigger pop-up, and so if you didn't want that scroll, then you can decrease the padding here. If I make my browser bigger, you wouldn't see that scroll. But that looks great. That's awesome. Like, that was so easy. It's just adding a Lightbox trigger content class to the pop-up content, adding the Lightbox trigger class to what you want the trigger, and then adding 2 blocks of code. Boom, we're done. Super easy. Now, a couple things I want to mention here. Say you wanted to like customize, for example, this overlay behind it, right? You definitely want, in my opinion, like, so people know it's a pop-up. This is just a good indication, kind of dimming the background. But if you wanted to customize that, you can easily do so. And so I'm not going to do it, but I am going to show you how to do that. So if you look at the Lightbox overlay, so that first part of that CSS code, you'll see the background color. And so if you want to change that color, you can do so here, and adjust the opacity. And so yeah, super easy to do so. And then if you wanted to change any like width options, then you can do so here. As far as like how much of the viewport it opens up to. And then if you wanted to customize the close button, then you can do so here. So for example, if you want it to be a different color other than black, well, you can change that there, and that'll change the closing icon right there. So you can make some customizations there. If you wanted it to be bigger, you can change the font size. Wanted to adjust the location, you can change it there. So super easy. We just created a pop-up with minimal code. This is not a lot of code, and with minimal steps without using a plugin. So super easy. And now the next method I want to show you is how to create a pop-up using Divi overlays. So again, Divi overlays, you can get it from divilife.com. We have it linked to in the blog post. You can look at the demo site here, all the different types of pop-ups that you can create with Divi overlays. And it can be like all these I'm triggering by click, but you can also trigger like a time delay. So it'll, after a few seconds, it'll trigger on the page. You can do a scroll delay. You can do exit intent. So if you watch my mouse, as I start to slowly move it towards the top, boom, it triggers the pop-up. So there's lots of stuff, lots of features built into Divi overlays. And normally it wouldn't appear more than once. And I'll talk about that in a second when we show you the features. But yeah, lots of features built in Divi overlays, lots of templates as well. So these all come with the with Divi overlays that you can download and import. So I'm just going to pick out, I think I'm going to use this one. I really like this one because it's a unique shape. It kind of stands out, grabs the user's attention, doesn't look like a typical pop-up that people are used to seeing. So that's the triangle opt-in. I also really like this one here. Again, the unique shape makes it really stand out. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to the demo site here. I already have Divi overlays activated, and this is using Divi overlays 3.0. The previous version, 2.9 plus whatever. We redesigned the UI for Divi overlays 3.0. And so now all the settings are condensed into one box, which is nice. So there's less scrolling around trying to find different options. It's a lot more organized. You can get this out of the way while you're building by clicking the minimize button there. And then I like to move it directly below. So move that down. So yeah, so you can design from scratch, but I'm going to import that template, the triangle opt-in. So I'm going to go over here and click on the portability icon. So this lets me import the template directly here. I'm going to go ahead and give this a title too. We'll just call this test pop-up. It's not used anywhere on the site. It's just for organizational purposes. A couple things. You'll notice the X, the closing X, but you'll also notice that this template has a closing icon already, so we don't really need two. So I'm going to show you how we can do that. So I'm going to go, I like to be able to see it disappear. So we'll go to close button, and you can change the location. So you can see it's now over here. Change the vertical offset here. Right. So you can change all that. You can customize the button so you can make it look however you want. So if you wanted it to be red background color, make it bigger, adjust the padding, right? However, we are going to hide it because we have one built into the template already. And then the next thing, you'll notice here that we have some white background. It just, Divi adds that when you import a layout. So I'm just gonna make sure and click transparent there. You can see the background now disappeared, which is good. And then now let's go ahead and look at animations. And so the animations, it shows you in real time, so you can see what it looks like. So let's do, these are a little bit too intense. That one's pretty cool. I think I like ones that slide. So we'll do a slide down. And then for the exit, you can do a separate exit animation. We'll do just a simple fade, but I want it to fade faster, so I'm going to make it half a second. Awesome. And then we can tweak the background overlay. So if you want it to be a solid color, then you can do that. I'm going to add some transparency here. All right, that's pretty good. So that way we can see the page. I'll do 75. And then the next thing we're going to do is set the location. Now, by default, it's set for all pages and all posts. But if you want it to just be specific pages, well, you can select the pages that you want it on. If you want it to just be on like certain post types, you could do that on archive pages, just on projects. We'll go ahead and just keep it on everything, but you can choose exactly where you want it. Similar to the theme builder, we actually ported over this functionality from the Divi theme builder on the condition page options. So it's super easy. It's familiar. You can exclude it from certain pages if you want. We'll go ahead and just use on all pages. So if you wanted to do all pages but exclude from the home page, well, you could do that, right? So we'll keep it on all pages though. And then the last thing we're going to do is set a trigger. So in the pop-up tutorial, so the first method I showed you in this video, how to create a pop-up in Divi, I showed you how to do it with a click trigger, which was great. Click triggers are awesome. It's a great like user experience feature so that you can show more content to the user without them having to reload the page. It's awesome. But this pop-up, since it's a opt-in form, I would like to do an automatic trigger. And so I want something to trigger automatically without the user clicking on anything. And so we'll go ahead and select time delay, and I'll set for 2 seconds. I'm not going to disable it on phone. I want it to display on phone. But there is an important setting here, not so much for time delay, but display once per page load. Now, time delay, it's only going to display once, right? Because it's only, unless they reload the page again. But if you had, for example, exit intent, and you noticed this when I was showing you the exit intent demo, we had display once per page load turned off so that for demonstration purposes, so that you could see it appear, you can play around with it, have the mouse leave the screen, and then it reappears. But normally you would have this on so that it doesn't keep reappearing for the user. Once they close it, it's done. For the demo, we left it off so you can see it. But let's go ahead and do time delay. And then you can set scheduling if you wanted it to be at certain times. We'll just have it all the time. And then another thing that's really important is the close cookie. So if someone closes it, you don't want to reopen it when they go to the next page. That's really annoying. That's how you make your users really annoyed and they leave the site. So what you want to do is you want to set a cookie. So for example, if I set this to 7 days, if a user lands on my site, it pops open and they close it, whether they close it because they don't want to subscribe or they subscribed and then closed it, it's not going to display again for 7 days, which is great. And so you can choose, you can make that, really long, right? You can put in 1,000 days if you wanted. And so that way you don't annoy your users. So really important feature. However, I will say when you're setting up the pop-up and you're testing things, don't have this turned on. This should be the last step after you're fully satisfied with everything. You've tested it, you've configured it, and you're like, the site's ready to go live. Okay, put in a close button cookie, because otherwise, if you close it, then it's not going to show up for you again, which can make it hard to test. You'll have to go and clear the cookies in the browser for the site that you're building. So we'll leave this off, but normally you're going to want this on. All right, let's go ahead and we'll save. Where's my publish button? We'll go ahead and publish this. All right. Okay, so that saved. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. And within 2 seconds, we should have the pop-up. There it is. Beautiful. Super awesome. User can subscribe here. This is using the Divi opt-in module, and so you can connect this to any email provider. And obviously, because this is built in the Divi Builder, we can go in and we can change anything we want here, right? So I didn't really show you that here, but this template, this is all, that's a Divi module. This is the Divi opt-in module, email opt-in, yeah. You can change anything that you want as far as the colors go and all of that. So that's the beauty of building a pop-up this way, whether you're using Divi overlays or using method 1 that I showed you with code, is that it's designed, the content and the design is done in the Divi Builder, which makes it really, really easy. So that is awesome. Hopefully you found this tutorial helpful. We're going to be actually launching a bunch more tutorials similar to this. So if you're not already, subscribe to our channel. We're revamping the channel, and we're going to be, I'm going to be a lot more active with pumping out tutorials, everything from Divi to WordPress to WooCommerce, web design, everything. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon. That way YouTube will notify you when I publish a new tutorial. And then make sure you're on the Divi Life email list as well, because sometimes we'll send some special stuff, some special goodies to our subscribers too. So again, thank you for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and I will see you on the next tutorial. Take care. Bye-bye.